Right now, you probably feel like you should be doing something. Maybe you picked up your phone without thinking. Maybe you opened a new tab with no destination in mind. Maybe you sat down to rest and lasted 4 minutes before guilt crept in and told you to get up. That feeling has a name, and it is one of the strangest things evolution ever built into a human being. Because doing nothing is not laziness, it is not weakness, it is one of the most unnatural states your nervous system has ever been asked to tolerate, and the real reason why reaches back not just decades, not just centuries, but hundreds of thousands of years into a world where stillness could get you killed. Picture your earliest ancestors, not in a city, not behind a desk, out in the open, in a landscape that had no guaranteed outcomes, no walls, no locks, no scheduled meals, just terrain, weather, and the very real possibility that something larger than you was also looking for food. In that world, stopping was dangerous. Pausing meant exposure. Sitting still in the wrong place meant you became prey. Your body knew this. Your nervous system encoded it. And the alarm system it built to keep you moving has never been turned off. That is what you are feeling when you cannot sit still. It is not a character flaw. It is a survival circuit that has outlived its purpose by about 10,000 years. Psychologists call it action bias. It is the deep-rooted tendency to prefer action over inaction, even when inaction would produce a better outcome. Researcher Michael Bar-Eli studied it in professional soccer goalkeepers facing penalty kicks. He found that goalkeepers dived left or right on 94% of kicks, even though statistically, staying in the center gave them the best chance of making a save. They could not make themselves stay still. Even when stillness was the correct answer, their bodies refused. The same pattern shows up everywhere. Doctors prescribe more medication than patients need because prescribing feels like doing something. Investors make more trades than they should because holding feels passive. Parents intervene in arguments between children more often than necessary because stepping back feels like neglect. Doing something, anything, feels better than doing nothing, even when nothing is exactly what the situation calls for. Your brain is not broken. It is running very old software in a very new world. Here is where it gets even stranger. Researchers at the University of Virginia ran a study in which participants were placed in a plain room for up to 15 minutes with nothing to do and given the option to give themselves mild electric shocks. 2/3 of men and 1/4 of women chose to shock themselves rather than sit alone with their thoughts. One man shocked himself 190 times in 15 minutes. Let that settle for a moment. People chose physical pain over mental stillness. The lead researcher, Timothy Wilson, concluded that the human mind is not designed to focus on nothing. It craves input. It craves stimulation. Left without external signals, it generates its own discomfort just to have something to respond to. This is the machine you are living inside, and it has deep roots. When your ancestors stopped moving, they had to be alert. The brain during rest was never actually resting. It was scanning, running threat assessments, replaying recent events to extract lessons, planning the next move. The version of rest your ancient brain knew was active, vigilant, ready. True stillness, the kind where nothing needs to be processed and no threat needs to be anticipated, was never really part of the design. Neuroscientist Mary Helen Imordino-Yang has spent years studying what the brain actually does when the body stops. What she found upended the old assumption that the resting brain is idle. The default mode network, the cluster of regions that activates when you are not doing a focused task, is extraordinarily busy. It is running your sense of self, processing memories, imagining future scenarios, building your understanding of other people. It is the network that makes you human. But here is the problem. That network, despite all it is doing, does not feel productive to you. Your conscious mind cannot see the work, so it reports back, nothing is happening, we should be doing something, and the anxiety begins. You are not resting wrong. Your brain is working behind the scenes on things that matter enormously. You just cannot feel it happening. Now add another layer. Every few seconds, the modern world offers you an exit, a notification, a new message, a piece of content generated specifically to capture your attention. These are not random interruptions. They are engineered entry points designed using the same psychological principles that make your brain crave novelty. Because novelty was survival. Something new in the environment meant something changed. Something changed meant either a threat or an opportunity. Your brain releases a small burst of dopamine every time something new appears. That signal was once your early warning system. Now it is how app developers keep you scrolling. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi spent decades studying when people actually feel happy. What he found surprised nearly everyone. People reported their highest moments of satisfaction not during leisure, not during rest, but during states of deep, focused engagement with challenging tasks. He called it flow, the condition where your skill level meets the challenge in front of you and time seems to collapse. This is the paradox your brain lives with every day. Leisure feels like what it needs, but flow is what it actually wants. And yet flow requires something your modern environment makes almost impossible to find. It requires sustained attention, uninterrupted presence, a long, unbroken stretch of time with one thing, the same conditions that let your ancestors track prey for hours, that let medieval scribes illuminate manuscripts for entire winters, that let scientists and artists and engineers do the work that changed the world. You still have that capacity. Every human does, but it is buried under years of fragmented attention and a culture that has learned to mistake busyness for productivity. Here is a counterintuitive truth that researchers have returned to again and again. Boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is a signal. Psychologist Sandy Mann has argued that boredom is the brain's way of telling you that the current situation is not providing enough stimulation for the demands you have. It is an alert that your potential is being underused. And when you actually allow yourself to be bored without immediately escaping it, something interesting happens. The default mode network fires up. You start generating ideas, making unexpected connections, daydreaming in ways that turn out to be creative. Some of the most reported breakthroughs in science, in art, in business have come during deliberately unstructured time. Isaac Newton was not running an experiment when the apple fell. Archimedes was not at his desk. Einstein described thought experiments, structured daydreams, as the source of his most important insights. The brain during apparent idleness is not idle. It is reorganizing everything it has learned. You were never supposed to be productive every minute of the day. The hunter-gatherer did not track prey for 16 hours. They worked in intense bursts, separated by long periods of relatively low activity, social bonding, storytelling, and rest. Anthropologist Marshall Salins studied surviving forager communities in the 20th century and found that they typically worked somewhere between 2 and 5 hours a day to meet their basic needs. The rest of the time was not wasted. It was used for community, for play, for sleep, and for the kind of slow, reflective thinking that kept the tribe intact. The 40-hour work week, the always-on phone, the back-to-back schedule, these are not the natural state of human beings. They are extremely recent inventions. Your body does not know this. Your body still thinks it is living in shorter cycles of effort and recovery, effort and recovery. When you force it into constant output without genuine rest, it does not simply comply. It degrades. Attention fractures, decision-making quality drops, emotion regulation gets harder, creativity dries up, and then the guilt arrives because you feel like you should be doing more, even as your capacity to do anything well continues to shrink. The real cost of never doing nothing is not laziness. It is the opposite. It is burning out the machine that makes everything else possible. Here is what the research now consistently shows. Real restoration does not come from switching from one screen to another. It does not come from passive consumption. It comes from what psychologists Rachel and Stephen Kaplan called restorative environments, spaces and states where attention is held gently rather than grabbed. A walk through a park, a slow meal with no phone in sight, staring out a window. These are not indulgences, they are maintenance. Your brain needs them the way your muscles need recovery between workouts. Skip enough recovery and performance does not plateau, it collapses. So the next time you sit down and feel that pull, that low hum of should be doing something, try to hear it for what it is. Not a moral failure, not evidence of laziness. An ancient alarm, still firing in a world where the threat that triggered it is gone. A survival reflex that was built for a landscape you will never live in, warning you about a danger that no longer exists. Your ancestors could not afford to sit still. You can. Right now, you probably feel like you should be doing something. And now, you know exactly why that is. The question is whether you are going to listen to 10,000 years of evolution or choose something that took 10,000 years to finally be possible.